Goeiedag. Good day, fellow South Africans. And I have to tell you, if I was in South Africa right now, I would be jumping up and down in front of Parliament House because what's going on is just disgusting. Okay, I've got two videos that I'm going to be playing here, and it's that corrupt little goon called Malema in the spotlight, like the deer in the spotlight. Now, what I'll do is I'll play you a video where he's actually talking to his followers and pushing the blame onto everybody else, suggesting that he was not involved with VBS and it's all a media conspiracy and whatever. And then after that video, which I'll play right now, I will play a second video and I'll give an intro to that separately. Okay, here's the first video with Malema. This only happened over the weekend, where he's talking to his supporters, claiming that he is totally innocent of any involvement in the VBS situation. Okay.
Receive any money. Then Shibambo comes and says the same thing. No. I never got the money there. My brother was doing this with the bank. This is what he did. They don't say no, fair enough. Bring the bank statement. Bring the bank statement. But when it's an Indian daughter, no, it's fine. Case closed. The record was set straight. There's no need for a bank statement. So it's very difficult to be an African in this country. It's extremely difficult. Their children are involved with tenders, with government, on behalf of white monopoly capital. There is nothing wrong. Our cousins and sisters and relatives and the people we went to school with are involved in some small Anyana businesses there with the municipality. Front page, Malema's cousin. But Pravin's daughter has never seen a front page. All of you sitting here don't know the face of the daughter of Pravin. Our sisters, including our grandmothers, and their pictures are everywhere. They've got nothing to do with what we're doing. Pravin says, don't involve my daughter. If I dare say that, don't involve my cousin, don't involve my mother. No, you can't say that. You are a public representative. They didn't say that when we involved Zuma's son, Edward, and Duduzane. They didn't say that about Nene's son. They were ready to expose that Nene's son got money from PIC when Nene was the chairperson of the PIC because he's black and African. But when it is Indians and whites, don't involve our children. And you also buy into that narrative. Or, protect. Corruption is corruption. Whether India or India or it's corruption. Why by EFF VBS. Banyaka way silence. Because EFF kiona elite that confronts white corruption in South Africa. By Twalela Mulu. By Twala Mulurai Karia, Pravin Uchijabar, hey, when I was covered in Malema, Hona VBS before Wolela Pravin. Baritwala Mulumurer Gari, Hona le corruption Yabusasa, hey, before Yabusasa, Hona VBS. So they are trying everything in their power to silence VBS, highly investigative. There were 4 ministers who had bonds with VBS. Because Renyaga EFF. And you are the transcript, the interview, the investigation of VBS. Every person who appeared in that VBS never much out. Ufile Chelete Malema. Did you give EFF money? So that investigation was about EFF. But EFF was never called. Go VBS investigation. batho ba di manager ja VBS ba ntšhitše proof ba fa di investigator re file Communist Party tšhelete, but in the final report Communist Party ha e gona. Wa bona gore ba nyaka eng? Ba nyaka go silencer EFF, ba ka se tshware. Awa agere ba no tlotsa ka maraga, ba o lesana kwa agere na ba re toditse ka maraga kwa Limpopo, ba re Malema o isitše Limpopo province ka moka le mamota o tsamaya se kata sela se sa no šala morago mara ba se tronko. Awa ba nyaka go iša tronko, ba do penta ba o lesa. Ba tseba ha o kopana le batho ba tsamaya ba gore motho wa nkga ba o penti le EFF ya bana taba le di proof. Awa ba nyaka proof. They must just paint it so that when it speaks, the people must not listen to it. Why? We are now taking the real battle to where it matters the most: white monopoly capital. Agere bere ilwa le Zuma ba re praise. Raba botsa hore no. La ni yelo ba re no EFF ya flip flopper. E rile Pravini, re support Pravini, anya le ba ra banya ke Pravini. Yalo nanto on khatla gore mo EFF lo je di bulelang ka mokana tjo. Di a recordiwa ke boletse ka nako ile re supporta Pravini ka Pravini le yena a se konyana o tshwana le yena o wa bo ba re ke Zuma ba tshwana again ka mara yalo re kopane le devil tshepedi bo diablos ba babedi ke diablos o wa re ke Zuma ke diablos o wa re ke Pravini. We must choose a better devil, and I choose a Pravin. It doesn't mean he's not a devil. He's a devil, but a better one compared to Zuma. So in the absence of Zuma, there is no longer comparison. There is only one devil remaining. It has to be dealt with like that, because it was a devil even in the past. So there is no inconsistency about that. Fighters, we must remain focused. Je dir hubang je dimcha. Dikasi hube koloi ya upaka. Di huba ye tsamaya. Yalo ye yarna ya tsamaya. Ke motšhene wa o itirisha ko automatic. Ya tsamaya ya pele. E tsamaya in sosa. E tsamaya e lwela batlhaki. It's the domestic workers, the cleaners. Ulwana le Cyril Ramaphosa. In the security, in the cleaning, in the catering, in the everything. Stop talking about insourcing as if it's something against whites. You are going to have to fight ANC people. Cyril Ramaphosa never said he sold his shares. Only the shares, Chaka, I've put them under blind trust. He didn't sell his shares. Everywhere else, including MTN, unature MTN utswa data. I see MTN utswa data. Ke Cyril Ramaphosa utswa data. MTN is a company that Cyril Ramaphosa has shares in it. Arekisha mkhalabolo. Utarekisha kwa kaura sure utlotla hanga next year. Unyaka ora ichwa krelo cha disa muemeji. Akasirekisha. Students of president ubone mbeki achile asiafechi. Zuma achwa asiafechi. Wena utatosa tsepai. Awu lo ena ndo ndakalo rawlele tiuri. Eka chaya na kwa mwene mwana. Ibile mo Malema ba sa lo na mo ya chai. Be aware that when you fight for insourcing, you are fighting against white monopoly capital, which has got comprador bourgeoisie with them. And one of the comprador bourgeoisie is Cyril Ramaphosa. Okay, patalaja is not a secret. I want to idea. What's the There's nothing you can do. So batho ba esho ke a tseba re sa le fitlile ka 9 ke re le mamata se ditaba re tla re kry-a letšatši a re launcha manifesto re tlhatholle lwetše le di buletseng. You'll find them in the manifesto of the EFF. a re raloke a re dintwa o ralokiša le a tseba ntwa re bolela re idea. This is not a talk show. Ka moka tše le di buletseng tša gane jwalo di ka se emele manifesto hempe le re fileng yona e ka se emele manifesto e be re gwane jwalo mathata a beng gona ka Joburg insourcing re a kweng re swantse re kopaneng le lena le baetapele ba lena re kwe gore na e stakile ge e tla kae. What are the plans of the municipality? A nyake manifesto e re feditše gane e tadi a eta e haka re swantse re hakolle because
Okay, there you saw the chief goon, Julius Malema. Now, the next video is a totally different slant on Malema's position. It's called The Fix, and it's an interview with the reporter who's been investigating what happened to the VBS bank. And she reveals that Malema is so deeply involved in the theft and the heist of the money out of the VBS bank, which is now in insolvency as a result, that, you know, there's no question that Shivambu, and that's Malema's deputy, and Malema, the leader or the commander-in-chief of the EFF. What a discredited bloody party that is. But anyway, so in the second video, you'll hear the reporter talking about how Malema and the EFF are trying to kind of, you know, pass the buck and trying to marginalize the reports, because she's making it quite clear that the judicial system in South Africa is corrupt. And these guys at the top know it, so they just basically, it's like, you know, you got a towel and it's wet, and you just squeeze it and the water comes out. You keep, you keep squeezing till it's nearly dry. What they're doing is they're doing the same to the finances in South Africa. They've got the towel and they're squeezing it out. They're cleaning up, and they're hiding behind a judicial system in South Africa which is totally corrupted. Anyway, look, here's the second video, and please remember to subscribe to be kept informed, and I'll also put a link to our Sunday night live stream that we held on Sunday, just 25th of November, where we had a long discussion with a San lady who talks about why this whole land expropriation without compensation situation is bullshit. Because the Nguni Bantu tribes arrived in southern Africa long after the San and the Khoi had actually inhabited this part of the world. The only people that the lands of South Africa were stolen from were the San and the Khoi. And let's be quite clear, the white settlers and the Nguni and Bantu people were equally involved in this theft. So for the Nguni and the Bantu people to now suggest that, hey, we were sitting on the sidelines and the whites came in and stole our land, is bullshit. So look at the link below and see for yourself. Okay, guys, have a lovely day. And again, don't forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye.
Welcome back to The Fix with me, Karima Brown. We are, of course, now joined by the Mail and Guardian. They are the ones that chased down the money and the paper trail in the VBS mess, and it led them to the EFF's leader, Julius Malema, and the chief whip of the party, Mr. Floyd Shivambu. And, of course, in the Sunday Times today, we also see that the ANC got some monies paid by one of VBS's main investors, Vele Investments. They paid a bank account, and of course the Minister of Cocta is mentioned in that story. To unpack it for us, Peter and I are joined in the studio by Tandukolo Jika. He's the investigative editor at the Mail and Guardian, who exposed the possible link of Julius Malema's cousin in the VBS looting scandal. Thank you so much for joining us, Tandukolo. I was really impressed by the way in which you were triangulating the facts. The week before, we got an installment about the relationship between Floyd Shivambu and his brother Brian. And then, of course, this week, it went further. We saw the different family members. And Julius's answer from Rwanda was quite telling. I have so many cousins, I can't answer for them. Tell me how you tracked the relatives of Julius Malema to the VBS matter and how they link up.
Well, thanks, Karima, for having me. From our side, I mean, we've been looking at the payments ever since, the Mutau report came out. And, you try and flag who is there, etc. But quite importantly, you look at the politically exposed persons. And that is how, we've been trying to piece together the pieces. And of course, I mean, it was quite interesting to discover that, Brian Shivambu's name came up, and then after that, his company, pays Matsubane Paleng, who is a cousin of Julius Malema, who is not that distant as, Julius
How
claims.
close are they?
Well, look, I mean, their mothers are sisters, right? And,
They're first cousins.
Yeah, they're first cousins, actually. And you would see, I mean, and even on social media, in terms of their pictures, etc. They're quite,
They hang.
They hang. So, and you look at, like I said, the politically exposed persons, and we've been trying to actually look at, as the Financial Action Task Force's guidance puts it, look at the links and the ultimate beneficiaries of these funds, as, I mean, the FIC is encouraged to do in terms of the illicit flows of monies. And that's how, we've been trying to track the story and find out who are actually the ultimate beneficiaries of these monies. And this is where the banks are at this stage.
So I'm interested. I mean, if you've got this far, right? You're a couple of journalists working from Joburg, working the phones. What would a joint Hawks NPA investigation do with the cooperation naturally of the banks? I mean, how quickly could they just walk through this?
Correct.
And say, okay, boom, 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 here we are. No questions. This is where the money stops.
Yeah.
Correct.
This has got to be.
Peter, for them, I mean, it could be quite quick, of course, because they've got the powers to subpoena, right? They've got powers to subpoena. They can check who ultimately got, the monies. From what we've seen already, I mean, Malema's cousin did not pay tax on these monies that he received. Brian Shivambu, he also did not pay tax on the monies that he received from Vele Investments.
So everybody's going to pile into this thing.
There's, I mean, SARS can actually, quickly go into this thing. It shouldn't take that long, especially with
the other thing that I found
exposed.
interesting about your story was that you found that these companies, in the names of these individuals, actually do nothing. They are shells. They are not involved in any productive work. They've got no staff working. They've got no payroll. And they looked essentially like places to launder money through.
Well, I mean, that's why, I mean, it's quite interesting what the financial, the intelligence Center and other financial, authorities are talking about is saying that you go beyond the legal
Yes.
owners, which would be the person who is the director, the person at the bank who is, who has signed as a director. Look beyond that.
Yeah.
Look at the target accounts. Where do the monies actually end up at? Because, if you look at Brian Shivambu's situation, for example, you can tell the mere fact that Nedbank wanted money from him, then it's pretty much impossible that he is the ultimate beneficiary of these monies that you got from VBS. Because, how difficult is it for him from getting 16 million? He couldn't pay, for a mere Toyota Corolla. He says he also uses Ubers to get around. So, and he's struggling to also pay some of his creditors. Then, there's something that just doesn't add up. And if you've read money laundering acts and illicit flows of money, you would understand that this is part of it's part of layering.
Exactly. And I think, Peter, this is the point that a lot of journalists don't get because they don't read. And I'm sorry to say this about my colleagues, but the report actually tells you how they went about getting the information. And so they did two things. They seized computers and phones. They mirrored them. And so this is not hearsay.
Correct.
They have actual conversations with people.
Yeah.
The other thing that nobody understands is that the annexures is sitting in a vault at SARS because it is part of an active police investigation.
Correct.
So when Julius does his spectacle on national television,
Yeah.
no one challenges him because people didn't read the report and see how actually comprehensive it is. It is actually
Correct.
a very great guide to where the monies are going.
Well,
it's impossible.
You
to
talk about
do
layering.
that.
It's laundering.
Yes.
And the problem, laundering isn't me giving you money.
Yes.
It's making it appear in your account.
Precisely. You have to wash it through.
Yes.
What I find interesting, of course, is two things today. This is not your story, but
Sunday Times.
the Sunday Times is talking about the African National Congress. Now, I spoke with Soviet Lekhanyanani from the ANC. He's the secretary there in the province. At the time I interviewed him, he refused to acknowledge that they had met the top six to try and beg for them to be bailed out.
Correct.
He also refused to say how many municipalities were actually implicated in banking illegally with VBS. Minister of Local Government and Cooperative Governance was right here when we actually read out the minutes of that meeting between the two, and he was categoric. Today, he is mentioned as a potential fixer, and in fact, VBS WhatsApp says that he's not a guy to be trusted because he wants you to pay ANC debts, but he doesn't come through on the promises he makes, and the money doesn't always go to the ANC, it goes to him. Those are strong allegations.
Very
So
strong
Mkhize doesn't take
allegations.
lightly to that. He's taken newspapers to court.
True.
It's going to be really interesting to see. What do you think of his role in all of this?
Look, Karima, that story for me, confirms many other claims that were made, and it also goes, to the depth of what was happening in terms of the loot at VBS, and that everybody was sort of
In on it.
in on it. I first recall that we wrote a story about, money that found its way for the January 8 earlier
Yes.
in the year. And they said, well, they didn't know much about it. And now Sunday Times takes it further. It emerges that actually they were actively looking for money from VBS. And now if you try and connect the dots, it makes sense that, there would have been municipalities that actually were depositing money there. And there were different interests and different people. So this whole thing is actually not a political issue. The origins of the money is actually what is key in this whole issue. It's that the money was not just money from anywhere else. It's money from the poor. It's actually money from ratepayers and different people who are paying tax in this country. That's what makes it more serious. And the fact that actually the former TG of the ANC was in on it is actually very quite serious allegations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's very disturbing.
Peter,
You know, left-wing parties have to steal money to survive, I'm afraid. It happens all over the world.
Yeah.
It's not only here.
Yeah.
You look at the Spanish and Italian socialists.
Look
They're
at
very,
Lula
sophisticated. You know, if you want to contract on a government infrastructure, you buy reports from their consultancies.
Yeah.
The reports don't even exist, but you're paying $4 or $5 million per report,
Correct.
and then you get a look in on the contract.
The other important story, of course, is the fact that the bank also, it says bank honcho gloated over Treasury visit. It looks as if the VBS executives could summon even the Director General of Treasury, Mr.
He was
Dondo
deputy
Mokgotane,
at the
or
time.
deputy
Yeah.
at the time,
Deputy
to
at the
this. And he obviously says, yes, he met with them
Yeah.
and told them that he's sympathetic, but, there are certain things that still cannot be done because they are out of bounds. And of course, we know that Treasury has consistently warned on this. And again, that EFF circus that was supposed to be a press conference where they tried to say it's Treasury's fault, it's the South African Reserve Bank's fault, where they actually actively misled those individuals.
Don Mokgotane just gets away in this story.
Yes, he just about gets away with
He does.
Yeah.
He should never have gone to the House, ever.
Okay. Yeah.
And, in fact, they shouldn't have gone to see him at all. The chap should have come to the Treasury for a meeting with the Deputy Director General and his officials.
Yes.
But most importantly, what that story highlights is the fact that the Vele investment holders, actually, they were quite aware that they were doing an illegal act. This was not an issue of we don't know, but now we're doing something illegal. Can we find a way around it? This confirms that they were actually actively involved. They know that they were actively involved in illegal acts here, and they were trying to find ways to regularize what they knew was effectively wrong.
I think what is interesting for me is that the reason for the EFF's performance on VBS is because they know how rotten this chain really is. And that is why they launched the attack on the Treasury, they launched the attack on South African Reserve Bank, and of course they must have known that Mr. Mokgotane had visited this individual at home. So it's actually, a complete diversion. The truth of the matter is that the Hawks, in my understanding, is at a very advanced stage. We need the NPA to come in. People need to be arrested. Warrants need to be served.
True. And I mean, we're tired of hearing that, the Hawks' investigation is at an advanced stage. It takes about 2-3 years. They would say the same thing. We need to see action here because it's a very simple and sort of straightforward investigation because already, Mutau has done the bulk of the work. What the Hawks have now is to use the law, subpoena the bank statements of all those politically exposed persons.
That's where we will have to leave it. Thank you so much, Thandukolo Jika from the Mail and Guardian, connecting the dots there for us. Well, that's your fix for the week. Take care and good night.